What's up, bitches?
Hi.
Alright,
So this is going to be a new kind of thing for Working Class Wizards, where me and my friend Celeste here are going to be talking about specific comic book runs, and we are going to give our general thoughts and kind of have a discussion about them. It's going to be called In Between the Panels, and it's kind of just us sort of talking about various things. I'm going to also be doing my own solo thing where I read every Daredevil run from Miller forward and kind of give my own thoughts on those, but Celeste is free to join in on that if she wants, but that's a much bigger undertaking.
I feel like I'm definitely down for that, but you have all the material more than you have most of the material.
So, because the only real reason I'm doing that is because I realized I haven't read this in a while. I haven't read this in a while. So I'm going to do that. But today, with our first story, we're going to be talking about the very important and groundbreaking Grant Morrison run of Animal Man, which came out in, I think this was 83. This came out like early 80s. Let me look at the copyright thing, because I have it in trade right here. This came out in, oh, this was later than I thought. This is like 89, or maybe this particular.
I know for a fact it ends in like early 90s, like 93 or 94, so it does go on for a little bit.
Yeah, so Celeste actually was the one who read this more recently. I read this a little bit around a year ago, and then before that I read that about 2 or 3 years before that reading of it. So Celeste is the person who I'm going to kind of let talk about it right in the beginning of it, while I'll kind of give my own thoughts in between, because this is much more fresh in her mind. But so just kind of start off. What were your overall expectations going into this?
So it's weird because, like, you know, when we first started to hang out, like, seriously as friends, you used to reference this book so many times when we would hang out, and I would always say, like, yeah, James, okay, yeah, sure, I'll get into it. It's Grant Morrison, he's seminal, yada yada, blah blah blah, I'll get to it when I get to it. So, I didn't really have a whole lot of expectations. It's just, like, it's Grant Morrison, so I was just like, okay, it's gonna be really trippy, it's gonna be hella meta, and it is, but we're not gonna get into that just yet. And it's just going to be a product of the 80s. So when I first started to read just the first volume, I'm not gonna lie to you, Animal Man became like something of my child, because I was so in love with him, and that's not something I was expecting at all.
That you really learned to like the character.
Oh yeah, most definitely, because he's just like, it's funny because Grant Morrison actually says this. It's just like Animal Man is just like a dime a dozen superhero. He's tall, he's blonde, he's good looking, and he has power. So there's nothing really intrinsically special about him. But what he does to this character, I was not prepared for, because I've read a lot of Grant Morrison before this, and I told you this. I actually finished the first volume of Invisibles.
Yeah.
And something I could say is that I love this so much more than the Invisibles, which is probably not a fair thing to say, because like it's a bigger series, so there's more books to it. But just like reading the first book versus reading the first book of Animal Man, is that this character is just so down to earth.
Yeah. Like,
I'm so tired of characters where it's just like, oh, you have a special destiny, or you're like extra special because you have a hidden power that no one knows about. It's like, no, Buddy Barker is as human as they come, and that's what I love about it.
I kind of want to jump off of that, because I remember the first time I was reading this, which I remember thinking, this is kind of what I wish modern Spider-Man felt like, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea. It's sort of starting to get back to that with Nick Spencer's run, which I'm really enjoying all the way. Cool. But I was reading this kind of like halfway through Dan Slott's run, and I feel like that was like right when he was like, okay, he started like Parker Industries and all that kind of a thing, and I was so turned off by that at the time that
Tony Stark light.
Yeah, where it was like a Tony Stark light thing. I was kind of remember sitting down and I was reading this, and I was like, oh, he's just like a normal dude who's kind of like in his own world, a B-list superhero who just like has a family and like has to deal with stuff and is slowly kind of learning, oh, there are these things about the world I don't like.
Yeah.
Like for him, it becomes like an animal rights thing and that sort of a thing.
Oh, that becomes so heartbreaking. But yeah, if there's anyone out there that really truly wants to read this run, just know that going in, Can I get the first book, actually?
First one's this
right,
one.
Yep, that one. Just know that this heavily, and I mean heavily, spins off of Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now, if you're like me, I've never read the entire run of that. So, just know that it does a lot of heavy retconning when it comes to that. So if you're aware of that specific event in DC, then you'll probably love this book, because they make a lot of reference to it.
It's super interesting, because the big thing I know about how Grant Morrison is he does not like Crisis.
Really?
He did not like that Crisis.
No, that actually makes sense, because in the book 3, which we're not going to get to just yet, you could really see his, disdain for Golden Age heroes. Yeah. You really
yeah. Especially how he feels about, what's his name? The, animal guy, the African animal guy.
Oh, the white god, Bombabis?
Yes!
Oh, he does, okay, so, sorry to get off topic, but, for the first book, it starts off with Buddy. He wants to get back into the superhero business. Keep in mind, this guy is an everyday, average kind of family man. He has a gorgeous wife, Ellen, who is such a fucking awesome character. I am so surprised. But anyways, he has Ellen and his 2 kids, and he's just like, hey, I miss being a hero, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life, being boring and lame, basically.
Yeah.
So he spends it's funny because his wife talks about how he spends $800 on a costume he only wore twice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he's just like, no, but I really want to make a career out of this. I just need you to support me. And what's really interesting about this dynamic right off the bat is that Buddy is this character throughout the series, really, who is a good person, but he's extremely emotional. He really takes everything to heart. He wears his heart on his sleeve. So things get to him in a way that you see that don't affect his wife. His wife is very much the rock in the relationship, where she holds everything together. She has, funnily enough, she's the artist in the family, and I think Grant Morrison wrote her like that just to have an avatar to speak through. But yeah, she's like, hey, listen, I love you, I'll support you, but don't get your hopes up with this. Your powers are, you still really don't have a full grasp of your powers. So they do this whole little training montage together. It's nice. It's whatever. And then, something's happening at Star Labs. There's this, thing that is mutating animals at, the science laboratories. And they, severely deform the animals to where they're just, all stuck together. So they call Animal Man because, it's Animal Man. If he knows anything about animals, it's this. So, it's so funny, too, because before this, okay, so people are aware of Animal Man's existence, but it's just kind of he's actually making himself more known to the public now. And everyone's just kind of immediately talking shit about him, or just immediately disregarding him. They're just oh, I thought you were Aquaman, or they're just oh, who are you? It's just really funny. Because,
I remember when you're talking about that, I remember early on, I think it might be that first story arc, where he, goes to a library to, look up, a book about, known superheroes, and he has, a mention in the book, and it's just one sentence that's, assumed to be retired.
Yeah, basically. So he goes to this lab, and he's just well, what are you doing here? Why are there animals here to begin with? And they're just oh, well, we're, this is the scientist at the lab, the main one, hold on, let me get the person's name, because the head scientist is a fucking asshole. He's just, every time you think of, an evil, scientist, this is, basically this guy, but in the corporate sense, where, he's doing it for the greater good of the company, if that makes any sense?
Yeah.
Hold on, let me...
I love these covers, by the way.
Oh, yeah, they're great.
The covers, let me just give me 1 second. Who does the covers for this? Artist, color, editor.
The art for these books are really good.
They are. They're kind of, cartoony, but, have, kind of, a weird realism to them.
Most definitely.
It's... Chas Traug, I know who I think might be doing it over, but I don't know if he does the art of the things. But let me just put it there because I was just looking at one particular cover that.
So, sorry, I'm taking forever with this, but
that's all right.
Really quick, I can't believe I forgot this part. But there's a part where fucking Animal Man meets Superman, and it's not really anything like major. But what's so funny is that like Superman comes off particularly condescending to Buddy, because he's just like, oh, hello, fellow superhero. I just saw you, and I was flying to Afghanistan, but I just wanted to say hi. And he's like, oh, hi. Oh wait, do you hear that? Like, I think it was an airplane. And Buddy's like, I don't hear anything. And Superman's like, oh yeah, of course you don't. And he just flies off. So I thought that was kind of a funny interaction. Okay, I'm gonna. Sorry.
I like a lot of Animal Man's interactions with other super people in this.
Oh yeah, especially when it comes to like Justice League International.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I found the doctor's name. Dr. Myers. Okay, the reason why it's important to remember this name is because this guy is just the absolute worst. So, as Animal Man is like investigating, he comes upon this like grotesque rat creature, and you know he's having a tussle or two with it. And during the fight, which I think is an amazing fight because it just shows kind of like, you know, Animal Man's not a Bruce Wayne. He's not Oliver. What's Queen?
Oliver Queen.
He's not an Oliver Queen. He's not professionally, even though he is a stuntman. That was his previous job before becoming a superhero. He's not like professionally trained to like fight anyone. He gets hurt bad.
There's this one thing where he's fighting like this weird rat monster that came from like Star Labs, and the thing just bites his goddamn arm off.
Basically,
and it's like I think this is the end of like the second issue. Let me see. Yeah, this is the end of the second issue, and the last image is just like him having his arm built off, and then the end of like the previous issue, because Morrison's, and especially in this one's really good at like having good like things to kind of make you come back to. There's this horrific image of like he goes to Star Labs because they want his help with animals, and he just walks in on this monstrosity of like these monkeys melted together and like this jello blob,
and they're still alive. Like the comic like emotes them that they're screaming, and it's just like it's horrifying.
Yeah. And so as he goes on, he kind of finds this thing, and another superhero that he encounters who becomes important later is B'wana Beast, who never matters in DC except for Batman Brave and the Bold ever again.
I was going to ask you that, because I was like, I've never seen this character. And I know, like, Morrison's best talent is working with really obscure characters and bringing them back to life.
Oh, yeah. He loves his obscure characters. And he is the only person who's ever, like, made B'wana Beast even kind of interesting.
Yeah, and what's really sad is that, like, B'wana Beast kind of has his, like, own little subplot, but it's intertwined with what he's looking for, which is why he came to America in the big city, is because he's looking for this ape. And it's a princess, and I forgot her name, but it's so heartbreaking because even though this is his quest, we see it from kind of her perspective a little bit, where this female ape is talking about how she's stuck alone in this dark, cold cage, how they pumped her full of like drugs and disease, and she's just like, this was a really good, her insides hurt, she can no longer recall the way how snow felt or the heat of the tropical sun. The beast is coming to take her home. And, like, he does end up rescuing her, but it's, like, by the time he gets her out of there, it's too late. And she's, like, succumbed to, like, the disease and her wounds. And it's so sad. And, so anyways, Animal Man just finds B'wana Beast. And he's just like, hey, listen, I don't believe that what people are doing to animals is right. Like, I'm on your side. And he kind of doesn't give a fuck. He's just like, get the fuck away from me. And he just like punches him the fuck out. And he's like, nope, like, I'm not on your side, buddy. I'm not on your side. Keep in mind, okay, this is Animal Man's first day on the job as an official hero. So while he's kind of like tussling with B'wana Beast, his wife is like, you know, his very beautiful wife is, about to be deliverance raped by some like some really like extreme caricatures of like animal hating hunters.
Yeah.
Where she's with her daughter Maxine, and they're just like out like I forgot why they were out there to begin with, but they're like just exploring nature or whatever. Oh, they're going on a hike, and like fucking Cletus and Cassidy are just like they have like their guns ready, and they're like just like they take one of the cats and they just like throw it to the dogs and watch as they're laughing as the dogs like tear the cat apart. And I'm just like, oh, Jesus
Just like
Christ.
some random, I remember that.
Jesus fucking Christ. So the mom tells Maxine to run away, and she's kind of stuck with the fucking hillbillies. And we get a little bit of backstory into Bonwa Beast. It's not too important. All you really need to know is that he's like this mystical African folklore hero for the animals, which I think Morrison does an amazing job of like changing the status later down the line.
Yeah.
But anyways, so as they're fighting, Animal Man is like really getting a feel for his powers. He like starts to like, because they're fighting in a zoo, because of course, why not? And they're just like they're going at it, and Animal Man is like absorbing each and every animal he can, and once again he's just getting the shit kicked out of him. It's not an easy fight, and he knows it's not easy. But a really weird kind of trippy scene, which of course it's Morrison, is that Bonwa Beast kind of has this power where it's like a mind control power.
Yeah.
I guess it's an alpha wave rhythm. Okay, so it like Bonwa Beast hits him with that, and like it starts to break down his nervous systems. So what Animal Man does in return is that he kind of deflects that power back to him, and it's a really interesting scene because at this point Bonwa Beast already has the disease that the Princess 8 gave to him.
Yeah,
like it transferred over to him, so he just like has like this really kind of sad speech. With his dying breath, he talks about how man should have stayed in the trees, and how the earth is doomed for destruction, and we're all like killing it. So this is the first part of like the real like environmentalist kind of, not propaganda, but kind of
that's what he turned. In a lot of ways, the other thing I remember reading this is like Captain Planet if it was great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like Captain Planet was like fucking amazing. It would be like if it wasn't stupid, it would be amazing.
Oh yeah, because okay, so this is what, weirdly enough, okay, so as he's dying, Animal Man's like, listen, I don't want to lose this person. He's not a bad person. He doesn't deserve to die. So what he does is that like he takes, okay, so this is where you kind of have to suspend your disbelief a little bit. He kind of uses his animal powers to like dig into the bacteria inside Bonwa Beast's body and like separate the the cells from the good cells from the bad cells, the sick ones from the healthy ones, and he's just better now. So you're
my only real problem with that is like that's a bit overpowered.
Yeah, like Animal Man in general, like as the series goes on, he gets like really fucking OP. And like no one kind of says anything about it, but okay, whatever. So yeah, it's a very bittersweet victory because one, even though he saved this man, it also kind of is the start of what will be a very tragic losing battle for him as far as his environmentalist beliefs kind of continue
those
to blossom.
escalate as the series goes on.
Yeah,
and he eventually like ends up like quitting superheroes, and he like or at least the Justice League because of it.
Yeah,
and like ends up joining like more militant animal rights groups,
and that just like turns so south so quick.
Oh, because there's like I remember there's like a specific part where like the superheroes are like wondering if he's like been involved in like a terrorist attack.
Yeah, and it's just like And yeah, so anyways, so yeah, the sorry, going back to the mom subplot, she's fine, she doesn't get raped. One of the guys kind of like turns a gun on one of his own buddies and like stops it before it happens. Like even he was like, "Hey, we were just supposed to have fun. What the fuck are you doing?" kind of thing. I love how, like, even, like, weirdly, like, human the side characters are.
Yeah,
they're
like
not...
the neighbor.
Yeah, and the neighbor's really cool, too. So, after the fucking wife and the wife and the daughter kind of escape that traumatic event, they actually find a little, baby kittens. All the kittens die, except for one. And, so yeah, they just kind of go home after that. So, Animal Man, after saving Bonwa Beast, he goes back to the...
I was kind of thinking of the scene from The Room when Johnny's just like, let's go home. Just over the dead, like, things. Like, let's... Animal Man just, like, suddenly gets, like, that weird Eastern European accent. He's just like, let's go home.
So, Animal Man goes back to Star Labs. And he, like, unfuses all of the animals that Bonwa Beast fused together.
Yeah.
And he's just like, how dare you do such inhumane things to these creatures? You're no better than how he manipulated these creatures. You should be ashamed of yourself. And, like, this dude, he has some fucking balls. When I was reading this scene, so basically he just bitches out Animal Man. He says, like, oh... I don't have to listen to some D-list superhero. You're not even Aquaman good. And all this other shit. And I'm just like, this dude reminds me. Do you remember Man of Steel? Like one of the very first scenes where he's like in a bar.
Movie or the comic?
No, sorry, the movie.
Oh, the guy at the thing who's
oh my god,
who's like.
Yeah.
The, like, 100-pound guy who's, like, trying to, like, fight, like, Henry Cavill, who's, like, built like a tank. And he's like, yeah, you're just a bitch.
Yo!
I like that movie more than most people, but I was always wondering, like, what kind of fucking moron
exactly.
This dude could crush you. And he's not, like, bumbling Clark Kent, like, oh, like he's big, but, like, you think he's, like, no, he's just, like, a normal dude who's, like, 210 pounds of muscle.
This dude is 7 feet tall, and he's like, oh, what you gonna do about it, little boy? He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Farm boy, you ain't shit. Dude, you better calm the fuck down.
Like, this dude will end you.
He will disintegrate you. So, yeah, this doctor's just talking so much shit. He's like, oh, you know, I don't have to take crap from some no-name superhero. So then Animal Man just punches the fuck out of him. And you think, like, oh, that's kind of satisfying. But, oh, wait. The real satisfaction comes, like, not even a couple of pages later. So,
yeah, doesn't that guy end up getting murdered or something?
No, it's even better. So basically, after Animal Man goes home and, you know, he comforts his wife and kids as best as he can, because they were nearly...
This was a bad day.
Because, you know, they were nearly raped by hillbillies today, but whatever. So Dr. Myers is back in his office, it's late at night, and Bonwa Beast comes back, and he has the Princess Ape with him. And, you know, he's doing that very cowardly thing where, like, he's begging for his life. Like, oh, please don't kill me. I didn't mean when I did. It was for science, yada yada. And, Bonwa Beast, he's just like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm not going to kill you. But you and the princess are going to be together forever. So he fucking fuses the ape with Dr. Myers.
Oh, that's right.
And it's so good. Because... You know, before this, he actually called the authorities because he was like, guys, I found the missing ape. Like, it was just here on my desk. So when the authorities do come and they find an ape on the desk, they're like, oh, I think this is the one Dr. Myers was talking about. So they strap him down and they bring him to a surgery table. And the last frame you see is Dr. Myers as an ape just crying because he's about to be fucking experimented on.
I remember that now.
This is where I absolutely fell in love with the series. Because I was just like, it's beautiful poetic justice, and it's amazing.
It just goes to like a place. I think the next story arc is actually where the meta stuff starts, and the next story arc is a story arc called
is this the Coyote one?
The Coyote Gospel.
Okay.
And I heard one person who was doing like a funny little like expose about this described it as, hey, Wile E. Coyote is kind of Jesus if you think about it.
And I was just like, why?
Because I used that story arc to explain the series to Celeste, and I think it's the best story arc to... if you're pitching the series to someone, I kind of explain this story arc, where it's, using, cartoon logic and cartoon-esque, characters to kind of try and make, a very weird poetic statement.
Yeah, it was
Animal Man's barely in this story arc. It's just, something he, comes across, but it's, also an interesting hint about, where this story's going to go from here. About getting into meta kind of that kind of stuff. So it's there's a surprising amount of foreshadowing in this.
Oh yeah, you could
when you go back and read it, and that was the thing I remember when I read it the second time, a year ago, was the amount of weird building up to themes. And this is the theme where the story arc where it starts to build up to it.
Yeah, and before we really get into the meat of the Coyote Gospel, which is a really fascinating story, just as a standalone, if Animal Man was already a pre-established character, and this was just a one-off, this would be a fucking amazing one-off. But anyways, so Buddy is, ever since the Bon Beast incident, Buddy is officially shook. He officially turns into a vegetarian, but he goes about it in a very poor way. He basically takes out all the meat and all the meat-like products in the house.
Oh yeah, he forces it on his family at first, and they're not down for it. And it's mullet son.
His little fucking Billy Ray Cyrus here. So yeah, his wife is just what the fuck are you doing? He's like, honey, he goes on this whole spiel about how meat is murder, and it's super preachy at first. And she's just listen, I understand that, the superhero job is really getting to you, but you need to talk to me about this stuff. And he kind of has a tantrum. He's like, well, don't expect me home from dinner, and just, throws the meat, everywhere. So it's just okay, buddy, calm down. But anyways, this is where we get to the actual story. And it's a really fascinating character study about some random truck driver that, is who is a really good-natured person, but because of all the traumatic shit that's happened in his life, he has a very twisted sense of morality at this point, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
They really go deep into this, random character's backstory, how he was a drug addict, and how, he probably would have gotten AIDS, but then, he met his future lover / husband / boyfriend or whatever, and he really turned his life around. And he the boyfriend was the one who turned him into who turned him to Christianity, who made him a devout Christian. So for the first couple of pages, it's just him tracking down this AKA demon, this devil, and he's using every means he can. He has guns. He has dynamite. He sets up traps. So when you see the actual demon, you see it's a humanoid coyote looking thing.
Yeah.
And he has a clear shot. He shoots him right in the heart, and he thinks okay, bone snap, jaws broken, ribs are broken. It's dead. It has to be dead. And nope. The coyote's just fine. It gets right back up.
Because it's a cartoon character.
Yeah, exactly. So, but he doesn't know that. So he throws a fucking... he throws a boulder at the coyote. And you see the coyote's horrified expression as he's crushed to death. And it's just nope, he still gets back up. So, the story just kind of continues that way. How he's he keeps trying to kill this thing. And, so when Animal Man just, drops by, because, he just drops by, the Coyote Man, he goes up to, Animal Man, and he gives him a letter. And from our point of view as the reader, we come to understand that this coyote has come from a cartoon universe.
Yeah.
Where, like, you know, back in the early days of, like, Cartoon Network or Disney, where they had, like, that really, like, old school style of cartoon violence, where it's like, oh, it's explosions, it's cute, it's funny, it's like dust clouds, it's like stars above your head, it's all innocent and fun, right? But this world is, like, so chaotic and so dissatisfying to the Coyote that he goes up to God. He visits God literally in, like, an elevator, and he tells him, like, hey, this world is ugly, this world is chaotic. If it means that I have to suffer for my world's sins in order to have a better future for them, then I will do just as that.
Yeah.
And God, being the piece of shit that he is, he's like, oh, okay, you're willing to sacrifice yourself for these people, for your people? Then okay, I'll send you to another universe where you know true suffering. That's what he says, the true suffering of others. So he's transported into the AKA real world, which is, you know, Animal Man's world. And, like, no matter what happens to him, he just doesn't die. And it's not like the cute cartoon violence. Like, no, this is bones breaking, blood everywhere, organs being fucking ripped out, and it's so hideous. But it really does goes to show, like, oh shit, when you kind of look at something from a different perspective, it's not as cute anymore. It's kind of not as fun anymore. And Animal Man is, like, looking at this letter, and he's like, I don't know what this means.
You know what? This might be a slight spoiler. I think it's really interesting that this story builds up the theme of, like, a cartoon character fighting with his creator.
Mm-hmm. we're not gonna get into that just yet. But so this guy, going back to kind of like the guy who's trying to kill the coyote thing, he's like, he basically just lost everything that was important to him in his life. He lost his boyfriend to cancer. He lost his mom too. And then this girl that he befriended, that he picked up one day, she ran away from home, and she was going to be like a big star in her mind, but she ended up just becoming a drug addicted hooker and ended up ODing. So he's just like, he's just tired of life, and he's just like, he thinks that this coyote thing is the reason for all of his suffering. Like, he's like a devil in disguise. So that's kind of like the whole motivation of why he's like so hell-bent on killing this thing.
Yeah.
And so he uses a silver bullet and he shoots the coyote in the heart. And weirdly enough, that's actually a really poetic scene, because you see the bullet go through the paper that he gave Animal Man first.
Yeah.
And go straight into the coyote. So I don't know if it was like, I don't know if it was the bullet or just like the symbolism of just like his mission of why he was brought here to begin with. It's like killing him as well now.
Yeah.
So when the bullet does make contact, the coyote finally does die. But what's interesting is that he says he doesn't feel any pain, that he is really dying, and that he feels at peace.
Yeah.
And as the coyote's dying, the trucker guy is dying too. And he says, "Oh, Billy, I did it. I saved the world." So it's like, it's so weird, kind of like how they accomplish both their missions, if that makes sense. Because, like, the coyote can't return back to his world until he dies.
Maybe this is another also kind of commentary of Grant talking about Crisis on Infinite Earths, because when the Flash dies in that, he's like saying like, oh, we have to save the world kind of a thing while he dies.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. Okay, cool. So,
and he sacrifices himself to like save the multiverse, and like these people are like dying to like save reality from like God.
Yeah. It's so weird. So the coyote died and the man died, and as the coyote's dying, he's just, I think it's supposed to be tears of joy, but he's just crying. He's spilling tears as he cries, and Animal Man's just like hovering over him as he's like doing the Jesus pose, where he's like laid out like he's on a cross, and the blood is not even red. It's when this like giant hand comes and then fills in kind of like the blood color of it, and it's just like the end, folks. Like, it's just ends just like that. And go ahead.
That's and I think that's a really good. The next story arc is kind of where it gets kind of weird and interesting, because the next story arc I actually think might be one of the weakest in the run.
Are you talking about the Hawk people?
Yeah, because this is a tie-in to Invasion, which was
I never read that.
a big event that was going... It's okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the concept of Invasion is it was this big event that DC was having around this period of time where a lot of the different alien races in DC around the time kind of team together and kind of decide all at once, we're kind of fucking sick of Earth. So
that's fair.
So they're all like, alright, we're all gonna try and like take over Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And
you know what, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but what this kind of part in the story, this specific story made me realize is that, like, I don't know shit about the Hawk people in the DC universe. Like,
it's not worth knowing.
Like, I know everyone, like, kind of, like, wets themselves over, like, oh, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, but I'm just like, do y'all even know their origin story?
That's because
and
there's, like,
does it matter?
6 origin stories.
Yeah, I was just like, weren't they, like, Egyptian gods at some point?
I think the original Golden Age thing is they were Egyptian gods, and then once, like, the 60s hit and DC, like, rebranded and everything's like science fiction now, so like and then they were like aliens, and then like I think the 90s hit and then they tried to make like a weird virus thing, and then like the early 2000s happened and they're like, it's all of these
at once. As they scramble to get it done for an edition,
which is always kind of fit into the post-crisis problem that DC always had, which is like they want to like make Alan Scott like Green Lantern matter, but the problem is that Alan Scott Green Lantern's powers are not like from the Green Lantern Corps; they're a magic thing, so it makes it really weird where they're like, well, there's this separate guy who called himself Green Lantern during the 40s, but he has nothing to do with the Green Lantern space Corps that exists.
Yo, so it's talk like, about going against your own. You're just like, we don't know that. We don't know that guy.
He doesn't. No, he gets his powers from like a dragon or something. Like, it has nothing to do with the Green Lanterns at all.
Is he like the Iron Fist of the DC universe?
No, he's actually kind of an interesting character, but it's like, that's always been DC's problem of like, okay, like these things where it's like there are 2 explanations for these things. Hey, which one is it? It's both of them.
It's all of them.
That's why I've always kind of liked Grant Morrisons has the philosophy of everything is canon.
Yeah.
Like,
why not?
And that's what he does a lot in his Batman is like everything is canon.
Yeah.
Even like the weird shit from the 60s, that was Batman in like a weird isolated room for like a month.
on a drug addled like run.
Having a nervous breakdown. He makes Batmite make sense.
Yo,
that's what and Batmite's like a weird like when he's going crazy, it's the thing that's trying to bring him back to sanity. And I was like, that's awesome. This one actually might be my favorite story arc in the first volume.
Oh, is this the one with like a red helmet? Okay, so red mask?
Yes.
Shit, okay. So, skipping over kind of,
that invasion story.
Yeah, kind of skipping over it. Okay, really quick, I just have one thought on that. Was that kind of what I like about Animal Man's character, at least in Grant Morrison's run, is that he truly is learning how to use his powers.
Yeah.
And with that, he fucks up a lot. Like, if you're used to having your superheroes, like, know everything, and who are always perfect, and who always saves the day, keep in mind, at the end of the fucking Invasion run, or the one that's inspired by, there's a bomb that's about to destroy the entire Earth, and Animal Man is, like, literally scattering to, like, turn it off, and he's just like, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ!
And then Hawkman just shows up and turns it off.
So, like, the world was like 5 seconds away from total mass annihilation, and Animal Man could not stop it until like Hawkman came and was just like, well, why didn't you just turn it off? And he's just like, Jesus Christ. Everyone almost died, and that was really funny to me. I was just like, I felt my heart pounding, even though I was just like, nah, they're not really gonna do it, but that was a really ballsy move.
So then the next story arc, which is actually like maybe besides like the whole end part, this might be my second favorite story arc in the run, is Animal Man kind of has this run-in with an old-school supervillain from
really old,
from something like where he was like a villain in like the 50s or something. Mm-hmm. And the idea is he's this guy called like Red Skull or Red Mask or something.
Keep in mind, he has the Jason Todd.
Yeah.
He has the Jason Todd.
It's Red Mask.
Grant Morrison also did Batman and Robin, and this design is exactly what Jason Todd wears.
Well, the big thing you have to know about Grant Morrison is everything he does in DC is, like, connected in weird ways.
Yeah,
because we were just talking about the God thing. In his current Green Lantern run, Earth kind of...
He writes Green Lantern?
He's writing Green Lantern right now. It's amazing. So there's
really
this current run where the God thing that in this story arc kind of comes up.
Okay.
So he's basically it's each story arc's kind of like a one issue like adventure type of thing. So on the third issue, this aliens kind of capture Earth and like auction it off to like various things. So the person who buys Earth is this alien who can make himself like change forms and is brainwashing Earth, but he makes himself look like God. So I kind of have a weird theory that and he looks just like how like God is kind of pictured in this sort of thing. So I'm kind of wondering if that cartoon thing was just talking to that weird alien that makes people think he's God.
I could see that happening. That would be amazing.
So it's probably no accident that his Red Hood looks like Red Mask.
So what I found really fascinating about this, besides the whole like, this is going to be a callback to a lot of his future comics later down the line, is that as much as Animal Man means well, he's doing a shit job at being a hero.
That's why I feel like this should be...
Yeah, go ahead.
This is what Spider-Man should be like.
Because... go ahead.
He's like, he means well, he's trying to do his best, but he fucks up just as much as he does well. And that's how I feel Spider-Man should work.
His save to not save ratio is not that great, fam. But okay, so the city's being attacked by these giant
like old school.
Like this is like some kind of like Orson Welles kind of shit.
This is some like from the Forbidden Planet looking robot. It looks like a lot like that kind of old school robot.
So they're just like, okay, well, nothing really bad's happening. So he finally gets to talk to Red Skull or Red Hood?
Red Mask.
Red Mask. And this guy is just like an old school hero that just did not age well.
He was an old school villain.
Sorry, old school villain who did not age well. Like, he just faded so hard into obscurity.
He looks like an old used car salesman kind of guy.
Yep.
But what I like about it is he got his powers back in the day, and his powers are like, if you touch someone, he kills them.
Yeah.
And like, he's having this conversation with Animal Man, and Animal Man's like, well, why couldn't you have used your powers for good? And I'm like, my power is when you touch people, they die. How do I be a good person with that?
Okay, I'm sorry, but my weeb side is going to come out real quick. So if you guys are watching My Hero Academia, there's a villain called Shigaraki who basically has the same power, but instead of like killing people, he like turns them into dust, which is the same thing. So it's just like you can't really be a superhero in a world where like bad powers like powers like that are deemed bad. So yeah, it makes sense that he would be a bad guy. But what was interesting is that he when he was telling his little backstory, he's like, we robbed some banks. Back then it was so much simpler.
Yeah.
Everyone nowadays is just... He's so funny. He's like one of those old people where it's like, back in my day, things were simpler. And one of his friends just goes crazy.
Yeah.
Because he's just like... I don't know if they were trying to make reference to The Shadow in the comics. I don't know, like...
Maybe.
That's like, yeah, so that was really funny. And it was just like, if there's one thing I've always wanted as powers, it's the power to fly. And Animal Man's just like, hey, well, what if we get you on TV? You could stop hurting people and stop being a villain, and you could, like, tell your story to others so that, you get some notoriety. And, bless Buddy's heart, he meant so well, and he really thought he was doing a good job. But, like, and he's like, oh, yeah, I'll definitely be on TV. So that when Buddy leaves, this guy just takes, like, a fucking leap off the building, and he's just like, no, I will fly, I will! And he dies.
Yeah.
And it's not even heartbreaking, it's just like, you're kind of numb to it at this point.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, here's another one that Buddy couldn't save, and it's tragic.
The next story arc is a story arc that involves Mirror Master.
Oh! Mirror Master is such a piece of shit. But he's not like...
He's one of my favorite Flash villains, actually.
Oh, is he a Flash villain?
He's a Flash villain.
Superman villain for some reason.
Flash and Superman kind of have the Daredevil Spider-Man thing where a lot of their villains intertwine.
Yeah.
Like Weather Wizard is like fights Superman a lot of the time. So it's a lot of their villains kind of intertwine. But Mirror Master is, at least from what I've seen, is mostly a Flash villain.
Got you. Okay.
He's one of the members of the Rogues.
Oh, okay. Okay. So what's funny about Mirror Master is that like he's just so he is trash. Like he's a nasty shit talking Scottish man who just doesn't give a fuck. But he's not completely evil.
That's the thing about the Rogues is they're villains, but they have a code.
Okay.
One,
you know more than I do.
They don't not kill people, but they don't like to kill people. Their big thing is to not cause unnecessary damage. Mm-hmm. I think they don't hurt women, don't hurt kids.
Yeah, that's what he's saying throughout the book.
People who hurt women and who hurt kids, they will kill you.
No, that's correct.
They're kind of like the mob in a weird way, where they're these supervillains, but they have a code. And a lot of the times is what they do is they're supervillains who view it is almost like it's a fun game. Mm-hmm. It's fun to fuck with the Flash. That's what they like to do. They don't even necessarily really want to kill the Flash. They just like fucking with him.
I think that's the only thing that fucking up Daredevil and Flash have in common, where it's just most of the time I feel like with Daredevil, no one really wants to kill him. It's just more like, hey, I'm going to be doing my own thing. I will fuck you up if you mess with me, but I'm not going to go out of my way to kill you unless it's Kingpin, you know?
Yeah, that's actually part of the reason why, a lot of the times the Rogues will sometimes even help Flash defeat, a bigger villain who's,
really?
They've, helped him fight, Gorilla Grodd and Reverse Flash sometimes. I actually think there's a quote in Jeff Johns' Flash run where he says the Rogues hate Reverse Flash almost as much as they hate the Flash. Because he's just a psychopath.
That's so weird. You ever get that feeling where people just hate you so much, but they hate your clone even more?
Yeah. So he kind of shows up. And I forget what he's doing. He's kind of been hired to fuck with Buddy.
Yeah, he's just there to kind of scope out the house because the secret organization. Because it's Grant Morrison, and he needs his secret organization in there.
That's why I like Grant Morrison. I like secret organizations.
So, and it's really funny because
the Illuminati hires Mirror Master to fuck.
The Illuminati's behind everything. But yeah, he's just fucking with Animal Man. And it's funny too because Ellen sees Mirror Master because he trapped Buddy in the mirror, and he's like, "Nice house you have here, doll," or whatever. And she's like, "Who the fuck?" She's so funny because she's like, "Who the fuck do you think you are coming to my house? Are you gonna pay for all the shit that you broke?" He's like, "Shut up, bitch!" And she just fucking kicks him in the junk and pushes him down the stairs. I was like, yo, I fucking love her.
I love her.
She's too funny.
Also, Mirror Master becomes important later on in the book.
Yeah, he does.
So
spoiler.
I'll give the slight spoiler. Mirror Master helps Buddy track down the evil organization because
they did a thing.
Because they do a thing later on that Mirror Master's I don't fuck with that.
Yeah, not at all.
Too far.
Because funnily enough, even though when you kind of first see Mirror Master and he's kind of an asshole, there's a bigger asshole that's that's part of the secret organization. He's such trash. But anyways, what's next after that?
After that it's one of the JLI, so where Martian Manhunter comes in.
Oh yeah, so I don't know when this happened, but at some point Buddy's powers get on the fritz. And it's not... I don't know when that took place. It was probably some other run.
I think that actually happens in Justice League International.
Okay.
Because I've read a little bit of JLI and JLE, which was Justice League International and Justice League Europe. Mm-hmm. That stuff's okay. It's a lot of people love that stuff because it's superhero comics if it was a sitcom.
Okay.
And
I'm fine with it.
it's fine. It's the first half can be really funny and stuff. I don't think it's as funny as other people. It's not my sense of humor. I think it's more it's very 80s sitcom sense of humor.
Oh, so
and I am one of those edgy weird millennials who if something's not absurd or like ridiculously dark for no reason, I'm not into it. My sense of humor is very Adult Swim, so I'm not big Cheers. But if you want superheroes with Cheers, that's what that is. But I think he loses his powers in like an event that was going on there. I think Vandal Savage was involved in that, in like a story arc or something.
He gets a shout out later down the line too.
I think that's why his powers were on the fritz.
Okay.
Oh wait, now I remember. It was the bomb thing with the alien earlier on.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I forgot to mention that one part. So the bomb thing like fucks up his powers.
Oh, okay, so that makes sense. I forgot about that too completely. But yeah. So anyways, Martian Manhunter comes to talk with him, and Buddy's like so resistant to tell them because he just got his membership into the JLA. I mean the JLI. JLI. So yeah, he's just like, I'm not going to tell them my powers suck right now. And Ellen's like, fucking tell them. Don't keep it a secret. So he tells Martian Manhunter, and Martian Manhunter's like, listen, I'm going to keep it real with you. We can't keep passengers on this team. Like, you need to like have your powers in check. But since I find your powers to be very useful because I believe that life on Earth is sacred, we're gonna let you stay on here. So yeah, that kind of
just try and fix this shit.
Basically, just get your shit together, buddy. So that's basically what he says.
I think Martian Manhunter is one of the most underrated characters.
He's really
interesting. I love Martian Manhunter. I don't know why they like never give him like an ongoing. And then that was the big thing that pissed me off about New 52 is, don't get me wrong, I love Cyborg, but they really shafted Martian Manhunter.
Oh yeah, they really did.
They like just shit all over him, and I was like, listen, I don't dislike Cyborg. I don't necessarily even have a
Teen Titans.
I don't have a problem with even him being on the Justice League. I don't like the idea that he's a founding member.
Yeah, right.
That's my.
Well, not to mention Cyborg is like 20 years younger than everyone else on the team.
Around that time, they also put Shazam on the team around that time too, which I can kind of, and they like make like Shazam and like Cyborg like a fun duo thing.
Because they're the youngest members, and they're just like, eh.
And that was I think the Shazam and Cyborg's relationship's the only real part about that era of Justice League I like.
Yeah, I tried to read the mini-series that they made for Cyborg, like his own standalone, and I wasn't into it.
Here's my problem with Cyborg. We'll get back to the book in one second. Here's my problem with Cyborg is like, okay, his whole thing is, I don't know if I'm a human or not. And it's like, how do you stretch that far, you know? Like, how far can you stretch that story?
Which, when you think about it, like, his original, sorry to interrupt you, his original origin story, how, like, he came from, like, two extraordinary scientific geniuses.
Yeah.
But he grew up in a really kind of weird neighborhood where, like, his friends were into drugs. Then his friends, like, got killed in, like, a gang warfare. So, like, he has a really, like, extensive backstory when he was human. So by the time they like get into him being Cyborg, it's like, well, wait, I was really enjoying you just being human, and like that whole dynamic with you like coming from privilege but also like having to deal with like things in your community. Like, I really love that about his backstory. Kind of like a Luke Cage kind of thing, but like, you know, it was like, anyways.
So the last story arc here is kind of more of a small one. It's mostly about him kind of going on and talking and having Martian Manhunter try and help him regain his powers.
Yep.
And Martian Manhunter helps him like regain his powers and kind of thing. This made me, I remember this story arc made me want to have Grant Morrison do a Martian Manhunter series. That would be really fun.
That would be trippy as fuck.
I want him to do like A Stranger in a Strange Land. I don't know if you've read that, but the whole concept of the book is these astronauts go to Mars and they like crash land on Mars, and they have their son, like baby son, with him. So basically they crash land on Mars and they die, but the Martians end up raising this kid. So years later, more people come up and try and go to Mars, and they find this baby. So they bring this human baby who was raised on Mars back to Earth, and almost all of the book is his interpretations of humanity and Earth, and and there's this great moment where like by human laws in like that book, they kind of talk about how like, they kind of like the big corporations and the political people on Earth think of him as, he's the king of Mars, he's in charge of Mars, and he's like, I'm not the king of Mars. There's a whole nother guy who's like up there, but they don't consider like the Martians like people kind of thing. So they're like, oh, they're always trying to get, like, on his political side, and he always tells them, like, I'm not who's in charge.
Oh, that's so funny. That's like taking a mailman and just, like, bringing him to another planet, and the alien's like, speak, great leader. It's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about!
It was just another one of the Martians.
Yeah, I'm literally just anyone
it's not that the
else.
Martians, like, treated him like shit, but he was just, like, another person.
That's so fascinating. I need to read that story next.
It's really good. It's a really good book.
Oh, I need to read it.
I read it in high school, so... But that's what I would do with Martian Manhunter, is it's just all about him viewing. So then we go into the second volume.
Mm-hmm, go ahead. You can start this one off.
First story... Oh, the first story arc is, I actually think, a really interesting one where... According to what Animal Man's origin was before Crisis happened, aliens came and he, like, got his powers from, like, this alien ship. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of it. It was, like, a really boring stock DC hero origin. Where it's, like... I always say the difference between Marvel and DC is Marvel, it's always some kind of genetic accident, and then with DC, it's always aliens did it. Mm-hmm. So in this one, it's, hey, how did Animal Man get his powers? And literally his old origin, they actually reference this in the third volume, is, like, it was explained in, like, one page, like, in, like, a DC Comic Presents character. So, like, Animal Man, here's how he got his powers. And it's just, like, hey, aliens did it, let's move on.
Okay, you got your favorite hero of the week, let's move on now.
So, what this story arc is, like, the aliens come back, and... I'm trying to remember, like, what specifically happens. Like, the aliens come back and they, like, make sure his powers are, like, correct now.
Okay, so this is where Crisis on Infinite Earths really comes heavy into play. Because what they do is that, like, so they're aliens from this dimension where Buddy Barker didn't get his powers until he was 30 years old.
Yeah.
This is one where this was, like, set in the 40s or 50s or whatever. So it was completely different set of stylings, different set of writings. So they came from that universe, and it was just like, hey, that old Buddy Barker doesn't exist anymore. You're the new Animal Man. So, like, in this new alternative universe, you have to survive because you're the new Animal Man. You have to continue living. So they, like, basically, like, abduct Animal Man, or they, like, tried to, like, kind of, like, bring him to their side so they could, like, fix his powers.
Yeah.
And this is, like, I think this is.
Yeah, it's like a 2 or 3 page story arc.
Okay. Yeah, so this is, like, interspersed with another story that's going on during the same time, which is that Vixen, another...
She was a part of JLI, and she is, like, I think another African superhero.
Yeah, she's a...
Oh, wait, I think she might be, like, Haitian, or, like, French Haitian.
They said something
because she, like... I remember in JLI, she's, like, their representative from France.
Yeah.
So I think she's, like... from a Haitian couple that lives in France or something. I don't know her that well.
Yeah.
And she's like a fashion model or something, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember in the Justice League animated series, she's like dating Green Lantern.
Really?
Yeah, in the Justice League animated series, after a Green Lantern and Hawkgirl breakup, Jon Stewart like dates a Vixen for a while, and she is like a supermodel superhero.
I love how DC's trying to make the equivalent of Storm and fucking Black Panther. Like they're just like, we have to have a cool black couple, and it's just like, I like Hawkgirl.
This actually, I think the Justice League animated series, that whole company happened before Storm and Black Panther got together.
Oh, okay.
I think, or it was like around the exact same time. Wow. So it wasn't. Also, it was in the show, it wasn't in the comics, so I don't know if it's like a same thing.
I don't know, but that's what I was just kind of like directing a reference to. But, so yeah, anyways, I don't know how, but Benoit Beast, whose real name is, I don't fucking know, but it's something, it's Mike something. They end up meeting up. Yeah. Wait, I feel like I'm going in the wrong order.
Maybe. That happens, like, after the Vixen thing.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay, yeah. So, anyways, Vixen and Buddy team up, and they're like... Fuck, I forgot what the main motivation was, but this invisible creature is, like, killing his way to get to Vixen.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, they're just like, hey, I need your help, Animal Man. And the only reason why she goes to him is because they have similar powers.
Yeah, they both have like animal-related powers.
Yeah, so
and while this is going on, Animal Man is also helping some activists stop like fox hunting in in England.
Keep in mind, this fox comes up plenty later in book 3, so you know, lots of references there. And anyways, you know, it's a so they go to Africa or whatever to kind of I forgot.
They go to Africa to do something.
They go to Africa to do something, and on the way there, they meet this like probably one of the most racist caricatures of a person I've ever seen. They meet this like.
I'm trying to see who you're talking about.
Yeah, you'll see him when you find him. He's called the Immortal Man, the Great Ahmed Ali.
Oh, is it this dude?
This dude? No, not that one. That's the shaman. It's.
I was gonna say, I was like, what's wrong with
no, he's fine. Shit. Keep going. Oh, yeah, there you go. That one.
Oh.
Because he looks like a person, but he also like I can't tell if it's like they're trying to mix a person with a monkey.
He's like a weird albino monkey, red-eyed thing.
Yeah, and it's
I have a hard time necessarily calling it racist because I don't know who it's racist against, but I feel like I should be offended.
Exactly.
I was like, this looks like offensive, but
yeah,
it's like
I was just like
Arab, African, albino thing.
I was like, even though I can't tell if they're trying to be like, oh, Muslims or Arabics or African people, but it's just like, I don't like that character design.
I think this guy might be like an older character that Morrison's using.
So like later, it's funny because they do reference his character where it's just like, hey, because the aliens were like, oh, we're gonna kill you now. And he's like, no, I am the great Ahmed, you can't kill me, I'm the Immortal Man. I was here before electricity, I'll be here before, even after that. And they're like, no, you're just some, like, really offensive stock character from a time long gone, and we're here to update. And, like, they just get rid of him. That's about it.
I like it because, like, the aliens are essentially, like, DC editorial.
Yeah. We're here to fix everything up.
We're here to fix what's wrong with the universe. It's kind of like that Marvel character I shared that you were like, oh, I gotta keep with like X-Men, and that's the person who's been like keeping the continuity straight. That's what like these guys are. They're just here to make sure the universe works.
Basically. They're the ones who really run shit.
Yeah.
So, I
found the panel.
Yeah, go ahead.
And they, like, turn him into, like, a drawing and not a drawing again.
Okay, so really quick note. This shit gets more meta than ever. This is where you finally kind of see where this might be going.
Oh, here's what they say specifically. Yeah, you hear me? I am Muhammad Ali. I am he whoever dies. You hear me? And they're like, you are nothing. A minor character, old-fashioned and melodramatic. Best forgotten.
Yes.
Your story ends here. You are not, I am not Muhammad Ali. And he becomes, like a little bit of a sketch, and then he becomes, like, a character outline, and then he becomes, like, a stick figure, and then he just doesn't exist.
It's so great. It's the most meta shit already, and it's just like, yep, I'm glad that fucking character's gone. I fucking hate that character.
Well, it's sort of like another thing, at least with like the racial politics of it. I think it's kind of clear once we like skip forward a little bit how like Morrison like completely reinvents B'wana Beast.
Oh, and it's great.
And like he actually makes B'wana Beast into like kind of a cool character.
You know what's so
and then
weird?
They like never use B'wana Beast again.
You know what's so weird about Grant Morrison is that like he was okay. I don't know what his politics are now, so I don't want to like bite my tongue on this. But in Animal Man, he's so you could tell he's a very politically woke person.
He is
who is very ahead of his time as far as like racial and social politics go.
He's still very much like that.
Okay.
So like this actually kind of because it's actually the very next story arc that happens where. Essentially, it's
apartheid.
It's apartheid. I don't know if this is a real country or they're making it into like
I think it was like South.
No,
Africa?
It is South Africa. Okay,
yeah, there you go.
I knew it's supposed to be metaphorically South Africa. I don't know if they were literally calling it South Africa.
I got you.
Or if they were doing like, you know how Marvel and DC have like fake countries and blah blah blah. I thought it was like it's Southeast Africa. But no, it's just there and. Basically, this is Grant Morrison reinventing B'wana Beast as Nelson Mandela.
Basically. And one thing that I really, this is a really weird thing, but something I found interesting when it came to him kind of reinventing that character was the clear distinction between white Moana Beast and the new black one. Yeah. Whereas, like, the white one's just kind of like, no, you know, like, the Moana Beast is about animals, and it's about spirituality. Don't involve politics in this, don't involve politics in it. And the black dude, which I really want to know his name, because I don't want to just call him the black dude.
Black Moana Beast.
Black Moana Beast.
BBB. Triple B.
That's what we should call him now. Shit, they don't say his name, do they?
I think they do. Oh, here it is. Dominic Mondois.
Okay, so...
Mondois.
So,
Dominic Mondois.
Mondois, okay.
I think that's how you pronounce it.
So, Dominic, Mike, a.k.a. the white Bonwa Beast, he's like, listen, I'm getting old, I don't want to do this anymore, so I'm going to find someone else. And they find Dominic, who's literally about to be lynched by a racist police officer. Which, wow.
And he was like a political activist who's been in jail for like 10 years, so he's Nelson Mandela.
Yeah, so I'm surprised how fucking relevant this still is. But anyways, so he's like, no, like, you may be for the animals, but you need to be for the people of Africa, because we are suffering as well. And he just straight up tells him, he's like, listen, your old way never really worked, so I have to find a new way to help both the animals and my people. And I'm like, yeah, fucking tell him!
So I'm
fucking dismantle his white privilege.
So like, they kind of make Moana Beast into like Nelson Mandela Black Panther Moana Beast. Basically. So it kind of becomes weird that, like, I don't know why they don't have, like, never used this character again. Because I feel like it's almost like Grant Morrison's, like, setting up a series for this character. Like, hey, if anyone wants to make a Moana Beast book after this, here you
and
go.
No one did.
And no one did.
I'm guessing.
Next is the next story where this ties back into a little bit further on.
Okay, so there's this character named John Highwater, who is a Native American physicist. Is
this the guy that has him go in the peyote thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So John's not a bad character, but he very much is disposable.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Because, like, he does become relevant in the story later, but that's more like in book 3. So anyways, as we're, like, going on, there's this environmentalist group that Buddy helps. And it's for, save the whales and save the dolphins.
Yeah.
And... it's a very interesting dynamic of just, like,
well, next
culture.
is the next story. Well, the story,
okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the story before that's the one where, like, he's arguing with, like, the shadowy man that's going up onto this.
Oh, yeah, I completely forgot that. Okay.
And because that becomes sort of important later, because it's, the only real know is that there's, like, a weird guy in shadows who's hanging out in front of Buddy Baker's house, and, like, his family's like, who is this guy? And then they're like, and then Buddy tries to go after and tries to confront him, but then the guy disappears.
Yeah, basically.
So now there's the whale storyline.
So basically, it's just kind of like, Buddy's here to help these people, and they're just like, hey, listen, this village of people, like, ruthlessly kill these dolphins for no reason other than the sport of it. They literally torture and mutilate dolphins just because they have sadistic delight in it. And something that a lot of people kind of, like, justify in this, like, real-world scenario is that, like, oh, well, you just don't understand us fishing folk in our small towns. This is part of our culture. And it's just like...
I'm pretty sure this is a comment about, like, a specific place. I think this one is.
I think it's in Canada.
Yeah, it's like I think it's like a weird Canadian thing.
So it's just kind of like...
I like how this guy looks like Aquaman.
Every blonde dude with a scraggly beard kind of looks like Aquaman.
Do I kind of look like Aquaman?
Your hair is not that blonde yet. But yeah, weird thing, but they kind of have this, like, fucking discount Ariel looking chick, where she has, like, she's like a mermaid, but not really. I don't know if you know that character.
I have no clue who.
Oh, okay.
I forgot about this story. I was like, oh yeah, there was this thing.
So basically, the story is just about how they have to stop these people before the new wave of dolphins come in. They stop them, and the main guy, the main villain of this story arc, is like this kind of like weird. I don't know if he's Russian, but I think he's like hardcore Canadian, where you just don't understand what he's saying, so he has like a heavy accent. Animal Man just basically, like, picks him up and, like, hey, you made these poor innocent animals suffer, so I'm just gonna drop you now. And he just fucking drops him in the middle of the ocean. And what's weird that no one really addressed is that, like, this dude was about to fucking drown and die. Animal Man was about to let this dude die, which
this
kind of
foreshadowing later.
Yeah, foreshadows for what may come later.
Buddy does have, like, a darker side to him. But in a very human, normal... He's not like...
Yeah.
He's not
evil.
He's not like a Punisher or something where he's just like a psychopath. He's just like... He can be pushed to a place like any normal person can be.
Yep. And so... But the guy doesn't die. Weirdly enough, it's a dolphin that saves him because... I guess in dolphin culture, you don't let your enemies die. Which, I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh at that, but the dolphin says that's not our way. And I'm just like, he knows different.
Oh yeah, he's like, our way is different. which is funny, because real world dolphins are like awful.
Yeah!
And people.
Yeah!
I was like, that's not...
If you really want to make the story realistic, they probably would have raped the shit out of this dude. And brought him to like, an underground water sex dungeon.
I think this next story arc, this might be the last one. No, there's one more story arc left in this volume. Okay. This is something with Our Man, who I know is like a...
Oh, this one was pretty sad.
Our Man, if I remember right, is an old Justice Society character.
Okay.
And his whole shtick is... He takes, like, a pill that gives him, like, superpowers, but for, like, an hour.
Okay.
So...
Which is funny, because that's how long Animal Man's powers last.
Yeah, so... I don't remember a lot about this. All I remember, it has, like, Elementor in it, or what's his name? This one. Tell me more about this story, because it's, like, or is this, like, a time travel thing?
So, basically what happens is that, Buddy and Ellen go on this, like, romantic getaway. As they're, like, going on their way to France, he stops by the, JLI.
Yeah.
And he introduced her to his teammates, which has the Dudleys or the Didsleys. So you have the elongated man, and you have Elemental Man, who could, like, shape-shift and shit. And I think there's, like, another weird, obscure character, I have no idea. But he's a robot or something. The fucking him.
Oh, that's, I think his name's Red Star, and keep in mind, this is still, like, when the USSR was a thing. He was, like, the USSR's superhero to JLI.
Oh, really?
He's actually, like, the best character in it, because he's hilarious. Because he just, like, keeps trying, because he's, like, this super, like, communist superhero guy, and he keeps, like, trying to, like, convince the, like, jail audience to, like, go with it, and he's like, I'll do anything for my comrades. He's great.
James, I didn't know they made a character about you.
Well, it's like in it's actually part of the problem in New 52 when New 52 when they try to make like JLI like a thing again and it didn't work. They try to bring him back, but it's after the USSR like fell. So the character like is there, but he doesn't make any fucking sense anymore.
That's so funny.
Oh, it's great.
Yo, it's so funny. But anyway, so what's his name again? I'm sorry, the main villain?
No, this is the villain. He's like a weird time travel. I actually don't remember.
Okay.
I do remember like the T-Rex in France thing.
Oh, okay. So the reason why there's like a lot of weird misplaced historical inaccuracies happening in France is because this guy with the power to change time, he kind of goes crazy because he escaped from a mental institution, and he's just like, no more pain, no more sadness. Everything that was dead will now be returned. And you just, like, immediately that this is a very mentally unstable person.
Yeah.
So, although and there's a scene where, like, he brings back, he's in a graveyard, and people are there to, like, visit their loved ones. And he's like, oh, don't worry, like, you'll all be happy again. So he, like, resurrects their loved ones from how they remember them. And, like, everyone's, like, very blissed out and happy because they got their loved ones back. But, like, the JLI come in, and this scene kind of fucking sucks. Because it's, like, it's one dude, and they can't handle him. So they're all scrambling about, and, like, Buddy's just in the background just watching this happen. And he's just like, what about you? You can't even defeat me! And, like, it's really sad, because, like, Buddy's really talking to this guy, and he's like, hey, listen... this is just how life works. You have to let it go. You have to, like, live on in your own terms. And he's like, no, I am the master of time. Everything I do, I control. And like, I forgot what it was. I think it was Elemental Man, but he breaks free of, like, the hold that the time controller had on him.
Yeah.
And he goes up to this dude, and and Old Man's like, please don't hit him. He's not well. Just don't hit him. And he just fucking decks the guy. And hold on, sorry. Give me 1 second. My bad. Hello? No.
Okay, now we're back.
Sorry. But yeah, it's just kind of sad, because it was like the first time you really saw Animal Man being inactive and just like trying to use words.
Yeah.
To kind of really help someone.
That's right.
This was like, keep in mind, this is remember from like the first book where the Red Skull,
yeah,
like, he was trying to save him. And even though the clock guy didn't die, it felt like just so bittersweet, because it's just like, you're being on mentally ill people. So it's just like, the next story arc, Buddy is like on a talk show. Mm-hmm. And he's like arguing with this guy about like animal rights, and then this guy's accusing Buddy of like being a part of like a terrorist organization. Oh, yeah, I remember this, because like the scene before this, or maybe after this, his son is like eating a burger in secret.
Yeah.
And he finds his son, he's like, what are you doing, Cliff? He's like, I'm sorry, I'm fucking hungry.
Yeah.
And he's like, listen, son, I love you, I don't want to force anything on you, but at every burger you eat, they have to clear out 50 yards of forest. And I'm like, dude, calm down. It's for the cows to graze in. The cows that you're eating that burger from. And I'm just like, oh no.
And there's a couple more stuff in the background, and it's at this point Buddy's kind of thinking of like, he's talking because he has an agent that's like a reoccurring character,
which is his best friend.
Which is best friend, and he's talking with his best friend about like, I'm kind of thinking about retiring.
Yeah.
This is all of like the political stuff is like kind of more where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And like the other superheroes kind of don't really like me anymore.
And what's fucked up is that like this animal rights activist group he gets involved with are like crazy radicals who end up like blowing a facility up. But what's fucked up is that like the animals that they save, they have like their eyes are like stapled shut.
Yeah.
And it's just a horrifying image, and like even like Buddy's just like, Jesus Christ, I hate seeing this shit. But like it's kind of like a weird thing where it's like, oh yeah, you save these animals and yeah, maybe they'll go on to live. But I think it was like 2 firemen died or something like that, or at least one was in critical condition.
That like tried to stop this place, because one of them tries to burn down this place.
So it's a weird thing where it's like, because Buddy's talking to his agent, who's also his friend named Roger, and he's like, listen, what was I supposed to do? Let those animals suffer and die alone in the dark? And his friend's like, ever since you started becoming a superhero, you've been like a soapbox, and I don't think you, I think you lost sight of like what it means to be a hero. Then they have like this weird back and forth, and then like, Buddy just, he's trying to give up being a hero now, because he's like, I don't know what's right anymore, and I'm just kind of tired. And it kind of just ends with, like, our character, John Highwater, and he's, like, literally being written out. Hold on. Oh, shit.
Sorry. Yeah.
Being written out, and it's just, like, half of his body, like, the up top is, like, colored in and everything, and his legs are, like, penciled in sketches, and it's a pretty cool image.
So, like, this brings us to the third story arc, where the third story arc is John Highwater's having like a weird existential thing, and something's made him come visit Buddy Barker. Mm-hmm. So he takes Buddy Barker into the desert to have a peyote trip, which during the peyote trip, Buddy kind of, to oversimplify, because actually when it's hard to explain to, I'd rather you all actually read this. Buddy Barker kind of starts to, during this peyote trip, realize that he is a comic book character.
Yeah.
And it brings us to probably the most iconic scene in the series, in the whole series, which is, he connects to this thing called the Red, and the Red in DC is kind of the mystical force that all, like, living things are attached to. So if you also read Swamp Thing's attached to the green, which is all like that's all plant life's called the green, and all like regular life is called like the red.
Yeah.
And one of the few good things that New 52 tried to do is they kind of tie Green Lantern into that, because they like can also like control partially life.
Wow.
And that's sort of like green is literally like life-giving color, and it like ties it all into like one thing.
Cool.
That's also why in New 52 Beast Boy's red.
Oh, is that why?
That's why, because they're like, wait, if we're really gonna play up the whole like the red,
shit.
I like their explanation for it.
Okay,
we're just like, okay, because it's established here that if the red is like all like animal life and stuff, it would make a lot of fucking sense if Beast Boy was red.
Okay,
that's why.
Okay. I still like him green.
I still aesthetically like him green more, but it makes sense for the idea that
yeah.
So that kind of stuff is cool. So he kind of gets attached to the red and like kind of starts to realize that he's like a comic book character and fights with like the old pre-crisis version of himself and blah 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 kind of a thing. And the pre-crisis version of himself is scared that he doesn't exist anymore and is like telling him that he's so afraid that he's going to go away. And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "They're going to get rid of. They're going to go." And then it's like, and he's like, "Do you want to know? Do you really want to know the truth?" And then turn around. You'll see the third secret. And he's like, "Oh God." And he turns around and he looks at the reader, and he looks directly at you, like in your eyes, and says, "I can see you."
Yeah.
And it's at that moment he realizes he's not a real person, and that there was like a previous Animal Man before this.
Yeah. And okay, I'm going to tell you the truth. I as much as I adore that scene because of just how how well structured it is, I actually watched a video a while ago that's like top 10 most iconic moments in comic book history, and this was on the list. And I was like, "Oh, well, that's really interesting." And I finally get to read the entire series, so that's a really
cool to see it in place. So at the end of the story, he kind of has this revelation, comes back, and the secret organization that Mirror Master was working for before, murders his family while he's away.
Yeah, and he just goes catatonic. Oh, like really quick. The guy who ended up killing his family is named Lennox, and
like the computer.
Yeah, they gave him such a douchey fucking name, and even his character design looks douchey as fuck too.
Yeah,
he has like slick back white hair and always wears glasses indoors, sunglasses, not like regular glasses.
And it's around here that all of the stuff that the previous two volumes were building up to, really start to pull ahead. So basically, Buddy Barker, you know, his neighbor character is trying to comfort him, and his friends and stuff are like, "Oh, it's okay, like, we're always here for you, buddy. You know, this is a horrible thing that happens to him." And then somewhere around the line, and basically, like, he has a family, and, like, the JLI is all there, and they're kind of getting, even though he's sort of on the outs with them at the moment, they're like, "Okay, you're still one of us, your thing was there." And it's around that period of time that Mirror Master comes back, and basically was like, "Hey, yo, like, I'm not a good person, but, like, these people killed your fucking family. I know who they are."
And it's so funny, too, because keep in mind,
like, these people have, like, names and addresses.
Because, yeah, exactly. So, because Buddy's family has died, instead of the kind of, like, now iconic look of Animal Man, which is, like, you know, the bright orange jumpsuit and the leather jacket on top. He goes
Spider-Man.
Yeah, he, like, goes dark, and he just, like, wears fully dark blue. He, like, buzz cut his hair, but he doesn't do it right, so it's kind of fucked up. So when Mirror Master first sees him again after all this time... I really like his
costume, actually.
It's interesting. It's not bad. He's like, "Dude, what the fuck happened to your hair?" And he's like, "I did it myself."
Or maybe it's because I feel like Animal Man's normal costume, at least in the context of the story, is very, like, purposely lame. Like, it's lame, but because, like, it's very knowing that, like, he's not cool and doesn't have, like, a really cool, like, this is a really cool looking costume.
This is just me because I'm kind of like a corny bitch myself, but I really like his
orange costume.
I like it with the orange coat. Costume.
The coat that looks with the leather jacket looks really cool.
But the reason why he wore it is because he was self-conscious. But yeah. So anyways, they track down every single one of these secret organization guys
and just murder them.
Just fucking straight up murders them. The first guy he drowns. The other one he literally buries alive. Like, it's just so... It's
like, he goes rogue and just goes on a killing rampage.
And it's great, because you're just like, wait, you're supposed to be a superhero. Why are you murdering people? And this one,
Mirror Master's like helping him do it.
Yeah, he's just like, hey, I'm more than happy.
Like these guys, these guys didn't. I did not know they played like that.
So the last head organization guy. What's so funny is that like he tries to run away, and as he's like getting inside an elevator, Arrowman just fucking punches the elevator, and it just the entire like elevator plus the contraption it's holding flies out the fucking building, and it's like, Jesus Christ, he's strong and angry.
And it's then in the next story arc.
Really quick though, he also ends up killing Lennox as well. He literally like tears him apart limb by limb, and it's pretty good.
Yeah. So the next story arc, he's like talking with Booster Gold or something, and he tries to like go back in time.
This part kind of like made me a little nauseous, only because like they introduced so many kind of like side characters.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I feel like if you're like a hardcore like Golden Age DC fan, you'll get a lot of these references. But besides Booster Gold, I did not recognize any of these people.
I think these were people that were very important at this point in time in comics, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does.
So he like starts to travel through back in time, and it's revealed that the shadowy person that was like to try and like
following his family
was him in the past, like kind of traveling through time. So he kind of goes there and realizes he can't like just prevent anything,
because he tries to warn his family about countless things. First he tries to warn them about Mirror Master, but then when that doesn't work, he just tries to like touch them, and when that doesn't work, he tries to send them messages. And literally nothing he does matters at all. It's just, and he doesn't change anything.
Yeah. So then the next, he like goes in time and he starts talking with like, meets up with like Phantom Stranger, and like basically what happens.
Oh yeah, Psycho Pirate.
Yeah, Psycho Pirate. Well, because it's tying into the Crisis thing, and the only reason Psycho Pirate's important is because he's the person who remembers
everything. Yeah,
remembers pre-Crisis DC.
I think it's so funny that Ultraman and like characters from the JLA 2 or JLA of what was that comic that Grant Morrison also did? It was where like it was the bad version of all
like Earth 2 something.
Yeah, something like that. Where like. Okay, I wasn't sure if this came before or after that, but
this came after that.
Okay,
that was a tie-in to Grant Morrison's Justice League.
Yeah, so you see like alternate universe Green Lantern who looks shitty. You see alternate universe Ultraman, Superman. He looks bad. Like every one of these characters have bad designs, which is the point. And I think
the Chimp guy becomes like important, right?
Does he?
In comics, he's like important, like Detective Chimp or whatever. He's like important right now.
Because I remember he was in the Injustice series.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so funny because you see all these like past comic book references. You even get reference to Watchmen, and you get like some back references of just like I think it was like Arkham Asylum.
Yeah.
Where so it's really it really splits your head because it's like
Mirror Master like talking to like these different universes where things, and the universes are kind of starting to collide, and Buddy's just like really grim and kind of is now sort of like having like a nervous break as a human. So he's talking to like Phantom Stranger and other people, and they tell him like things about reality and how many different people they've seen, and they're talking to not what's his name, the immortal guy from DC.
He was in Sandman, wasn't he? Shit.
I think he was in Sandman. He was also in the Justice League animated series.
I forgot. I'm sorry. Miracle Man?
No, not Miracle Man.
Yeah,
That's
I don't know what Miracle Man does, to be honest.
He's Victor. It's V something. Well, whatever. He starts talking to him, and he's like, "Oh, I've seen so many kind of people die, blah blah blah," kind of a thing.
Oh, we gotta get to this part real quick, because I was a little disturbed by that. Okay, so after they kind of like have their come to Jesus moment, and they like were talking to Buddy about like life is important, death is nothing but just what happens to everyone at some point. So what matters is what you make of life. So that's what, and Buddy kind of like feels the weight coming off of that. But what's so funny is that like all the different versions of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman start to come out, and like everything starts to collide together. But there's like this rabid rapist Superman that I don't even know if he was like a real thing in DC Comics or they just made him up for this. But he's like crazy, and he just his whole mission in life is just to kill humanity. And he kind of like carries this nuclear bomb no matter where he goes, and he's like foaming at the mouth. He's like, blood, tears, fucking burned flesh, and it's like, what the fuck are we looking at?
I know this is Grant Morrison getting weird, but I like this more than some other Grant Morrison stuff because he really builds to the weird.
Oh yeah, he really does.
And so they're fighting this kind of like Superman who has like an American flag as a cape who wants to nuke everything.
Yeah, that's what.
And
I think it's his name is like Overman because when you scream in horror, your mouth is shaped like an O. I'm not even joking. That's the explanation they give. So why is Overman?
Overman fights like a version of Bizarro, which is the Bizarro I like because I like from another universe Bizarro, who's like from like reverse. I don't necessarily like clone Bizarro as much. I think that's less interesting. I like the idea that he's from like a version of Earth where everything's off, and I kind of like that. I like Clone Bizarro in like the Superman animated series, where he's like Lenny from Of Mice and Men.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I'm like, didn't they make him special needs?
Yeah, and it's like a weird metaphor for that, and I think that can be used kind of well. But I think like Bizarro, who is like
from an alternate dimension,
is more interesting.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
In the in Peter J. Tomasi's Superman run, where he has like Connor Kent, where he has like his son and stuff. They kind of go and they see like Bizarro Connor Kent, and it's like Superman's like in that Bizarro Superman's like an abusive father to. It's like really like everything's different. Wow. It's a really interesting take.
That's crazy.
And it's sort of like. And then you'll see, like, Bizarro Superboy's, like, oh, me no like, because everything that they say is backwards in reverse. It's like, me no like, regular Superman. I am glad that my dad is not like you.
Oh, wow.
Like, I wish my dad was, like, was like real Superman.
Like, oh, no.
So it's like all these kings are kind of falling out.
So, in the background, Psycho Pirate is just kind of, like, everyone's just kind of like doing their best to like stay calm in the situation, but he's the one. He's like, these sick fuckers. We're only characters in a story. They want you to fight. Someone stop this. Someone stop this. So like he ends up leaving the story eventually because he's becoming too self-aware.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of confused about what they do to John Highwater's character, because basically what happens to him after like the whole fight ends with Animal Man and Overman.
Overman and these weird alternate versions that are trying to kill Psycho Pirate for some reason.
Yeah, okay. But anyways, it's like... So after that kind of whole debacle just, like, reaches its climax, there's this weird kind of, like, fade to white, or no, it's not really...
Yeah, fade to white. The aliens come, and they kind of, like, fix everything with, like, a Deus Ex Machina thing, which is probably why this book...
Why it's called Deus Ex Machina.
This is probably called Deus Ex Machina, but...
So, so after that's done, we get, like, this, like, monkey character that's, like... which is a really on-the-nose metaphor for writing.
For writing?
Yeah, for, like, hack writers, at least. Where
it's writing the script for Animal Man issue 25. And issue 2, that's why I always say I love the fucking covers for this. This series might have my favorite covers in comics.
Oh, yeah.
Is really because... Good. It's weird because I'm reading this at the same time as reading Frank Miller's Daredevil, and that probably has my second favorite issues for comics. So, and like same like 80s. I'm an 80s comics guy.
I feel you.
But it's like this monkey's reading the page to Grant Morrison, the script to it, and it's just kind of like describing like each frame like in explicit detail and stuff. And I like doing that because when I write comics, that's how I write. I go like really specific detail in each thing. That's also how Alan Moore writes. Is he will write literally like 4 pages for a panel. Like he will go into.
I feel like that's something I would do, to be honest.
That's what he does. Like one. I think like Dave Gibbons, when he's talking about Watchmen, is that like 1 page in Watchmen is like 20 pages for a script. For just how much detail he's like describing. Like he describes this is what I want you to fucking draw.
And you will do it, damn it. I'm Alan Moore.
So basically, it's so weird because Morrison and Moore hate each other, but
yeah, why is that?
they have like weirdly different things.
It's because Moore is British and those.
I don't think it's anything to do with. They have like similar politics, so I don't think it has like anything to do with that. I think they just like don't meld well as people.
Okay.
I think Morrison's the big. I don't necessarily like. I'll make things sort of dark and gritty, but I don't. I think it was like. I think Morrison was very critical that Morrison doesn't like Watchmen.
Really?
He does not like what it has to say about superheroes and that kind of a thing. Morrison's one of those big superheroes should be like heroic, kind of like I think they should give people hope kind of a thing.
I actually take back what I said because, okay, quick spoiler, but there's a point where kind of like there's this speech being made where a certain character that we're
just about to get there, to be
honest. So I'm going to spoil it anyway.
So let's actually just know, because he gets sent, basically the aliens send, I'm sorry to interrupt. I feel like if we're going to get there, I don't want to skip this part of it, because this might be my favorite part in the whole thing.
Go ahead.
So, like, Animal Man, like, the aliens, when they kind of send all these characters away, and Animal Man gets sent to the dimension of forgotten characters.
Yes.
The land of forgotten.
Yeah.
This is my favorite part of the run. I didn't want to skip it.
Limbo for obscure characters.
And I think it's more funny because some of the characters that appear in this reappear later, and they're super like big. Because Mr. Freeze is here.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Okay.
Because this is the device.
Okay, so you have, like, some really stupid characters like the Inferior Five, right?
Yeah.
And you think, like, okay, well, those don't matter. So they go down the list of characters.
So, like, he's traveling through this, like, purgatory realm of, like, forgotten characters.
Yep.
And he's, like, going through trying to find a way to escape, and, like, this jester guy's following him. He's like, no one's ever escaped the limbo of forgotten characters.
But I'm like, the jester is really self-aware. He's like, hey, I know I look stupid, but at least I'm aware I look stupid in the jester outfit.
I just thought it was funny. I wanted to do my annoying Chester voice.
So yeah, he's like, hey, listen, just go to this tower and you'll understand everything. Go to this city. So he's on a mission to, like, carry this monkey and to bring this the script that this monkey has, right?
Yeah.
And as he's on this journey, he meets a bunch of characters. One that he gives his jacket to because he, like, pretends to be, like, sad and cold, and he's, like, shivering. And he's like, oh, thank you, sir. Go that way if you want to go to the Forbidden City. He's like, sucker.
Yeah.
Anyways, as he's walking through, we get to see Mr. Freeze. And it's weird that when I first read this, because I read this twice, I was like, wait, why the fuck is Mr. Freeze in the obscure limbo of characters?
Because this is before Batman the Animated Series came out. This was before they reinvented Mr. Freeze and made the Mr. Freeze that everyone gives a shit about.
Yeah.
At this point in time, Mr. Freeze was an obscure character.
That was so crazy to me. I was just
He's no longer there.
Yeah.
He was able to get out.
He's not in limbo anymore. Yeah.
The monkey.
Good job.
The monkey Pauldini pulled him out.
Good job, Victor. No, anyways, so after, which is really weird because, like, he says, like, hey, I want a momentum because I want to know what a person looks like. So he gives him a picture of his family, and I don't know, I thought that was a really interesting moment of just, like, that's your last reminder of your family.
I wonder what Grant Morrison's reaction to, like, Batman the Animated Series in that episode comes in, and I sure at the end of this episode, Grant Morrison thought, wow, that was a really great episode. God damn it, you ruined my fucking reference.
You ruined it!
He's not an obscure character. People now reading that comic could be like, why is Mr. Freeze here?
No, you know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of that SpongeBob episode where he's like, Soiled it! So, so the monkey is basically dead at this point, but he's still carrying it. And the Forbidden City, the sacred city that he's been desperately searching for apparently years, as far as he knows in the comics, is his house.
Yeah.
He travels this, like, crazy journey only to end up right back at his house. So his pets are dead, and everything that he's ever cared about in his life is dead. He doesn't know why he's even on this mission anymore. So then he kind of, like, constructs a makeshift key from paper, and he opens a door, and he travels through that door, and he meets the one and the only Grant Morrison.
And Grant Morrison just says, I'm Grant, are you coming in? I've been expecting you. And then, once again, the next cover is literally just a photograph of Grant Morrison sitting on a chair with his foot on the back of, like, a drawn Animal Man.
Who is, like, defeated and busted up.
Yeah, who's, like, busted up. And then the last issue is just Animal Man talking with Grant Morrison. And it's kind of Grant Morrison also then kind of talking to the audience about, like, hey, here, this is my last issue on the book. This is just kind of me talking about my feelings on this. My feelings. My stuff on writing, how I am as a person. Okay. And it's just, everyone's like, why did you kill my family?
Basically. He's like, oh, well, you know, I wanted to make trauma. And he's like, no! Give me back my life, you asshole! So, okay. Do you have any other thoughts on this? Because I feel like
we could just kind of get to the end of this and we can kind of give our overall impressions.
Go ahead.
So he's kind of like, yeah, no, this is what I sort of feel. And he's like, I was super big into, like, environmental and animal rights politics. I wanted to use you as a platform for that. And he's like, yeah, but you kind of ruined my life doing that. And he's like, yeah, I was thinking about that I kind of ruined your life. And I was like, and sort of me kind of got back to thinking, like, maybe, and I like because we talk about that it's kind of preachy there, but then Grant Morrison says, like, yeah, in some ways I feel like maybe I was being kind of preachy.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe that wasn't the best way to do it. And it's just this really interesting, I like how he addresses all of the problems with the book that even I at times had to the audience. And I think that's really interesting.
Okay, that's actually one of my 3 thoughts that I actually want to get in, but since we're already here, I really liked how, like, Grant Morrison kind of, like, as his in-character in the comic, addresses everything that's wrong with modern-day interpretations of superheroes and the superhero genre as a whole.
Yeah.
Where just because something is dark, just because something's sad and gritty, it's somehow deemed as more mature, more adult, and it, like, completely, like, misses the point of what superheroes are supposed to be or what they're, like, intentionally supposed to represent. So when you told me that, like, Grant Morrison and Alan
Moore don't get along,
it makes sense because it's just kind of like, it's like he's looking down on that way of thinking of just, like, how superheroes are and, like, why this oversaturation of dark heroes is kind of like a negative thing.
Because it's like, I love Alan Moore, but Grant Morrison describes Watchmen as a superhero story written by someone who doesn't like superheroes.
Oh, yeah.
And I think,
kind of see that.
And I was just kind of like, and he's like someone who's like, no, I really like superheroes. Because Grant Morrison was like, part of that generation. It was like, I was that generation of people, you know how there's, like, the 70s, there were the people who grew up on movies and then started making movies? Grant Morrison was part of that generation of people who grew up on comics during, like, the 60s, and then, like, came up and started to write comics. So he was like, I really like superheroes. I've read superhero comics my whole life and kind of a thing. It's a big part of who I am. And it's like, I don't really like... There was also a part where Alan Moore, like, where Grant Morrison went to go meet Alan Moore, and, like, Alan Moore kind of, like, told him off. Like, it's like, oh, how do I get into the comic book industry? And Alan Moore was just like, you shouldn't do it. You're not... Like, I've reading some of his stuff, and I was like, I don't really like it. And he's like, fuck you, Alan Moore. And it was sort of like, and then Alan Moore, like, accused Grant Morrison of, like, stealing a story from a friend of Alan Moore's. I don't know about how true or not true that is. I haven't read the story that they were talking about.
I'm gonna find that now.
I'm curious.
Do some research
there was like a whole article I read about it on one point. It's a really interesting subject. But it's weird because they're very different but very similar people.
Yeah.
But it's just it's just kind of them having a conversation.
Oh, and to, like, kind of, like, in his words, make the scenes more interesting.
Yeah.
He makes Buddy kind of, like, battle to the death with these other obscure characters. He just kind of, like, pulled out of his ass. And he's, like, as, like, Buddy's, like, fighting for his fucking life, because you can see him, like, struggling in the background. And Grant Morrison's just like, oh, I want to thank the writers, I want to thank the illustrators, I want to thank this, that, and that. And it's so funny, because he's just giving a long diatribe about these real-life people who actually worked on the book. But you could kind of see him you could see him date himself when he says, like, oh, and make sure to give support to your local PETA station, support PETA, and I'm like, you really shouldn't support PETA.
This was back in the 80s.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, nowadays, I'm just like, they're not as...
But
they're not as great as you think
it's one of those, he's kind of putting it there, but it's not as important as that's what it's about.
No, that's just a detail that I noticed. I'm just like, oh, wow, this is really old.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing, where it's like,
so it just kind of ends and Grant Morrison brings back Buddy Barker's wife, and... there we go. And the last image is kind of him, Grant Morrisons kind of thinking about this, and is that it? Is that the best you can do? Nothing? When I was young, I had an imagination.
He retells the Fox
He talks
from
about
earlier.
thing. He had a friend called Foxy, and my parents, and basically like a story with his things, and then it's just that runs.
Yeah.
He also kind of mentions just like, what, you write me? He's like, I also write the Doom Patrol too, but they don't know it.
Don't tell them. They're already freaks as it is, which I still need to read, by the way.
Yeah. So I thought that was great. So overall, what did you think about this run?
Overall, I was very surprised by how much I fell in love with not just the character, but kind of Grant Morrison himself, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Because I've been getting really fatigued on Morrison, where, like I said, I just finished The Invisibles. I liked it, but I wasn't in love with it. Yeah. I read The Filth, loved it, but it made me feel dirty in a way. It was a little bit too convoluted. His Batman stuff is really great, but I haven't read that in years, so a lot gets lost. But this really made me fall in love with comics in a way that I haven't felt in a long time. And I'm
glad then.
Yeah, it was just like I love this character, and I will probably never see another iteration of like Animal Man again. That makes me sad because I love Buddy.
There was the New 52 one, which I actually really enjoyed. So
I heard mixed reviews on it.
I really liked it, but it's very different than this. And they kind of take the similar concept where it's less like meta, kind of like him arguing a thing, and it's much more of like a Lovecraft thing. Ooh. It's much of like Animal Man's like fighting within the beings that have given him his powers. Okay. And it's much more like he's this small, insignificant in a cog of this grand celestial thing. Okay. It's similar in that it's like really grand scope and playing with it, but it's much more of a horror book. The New 52 Animal Man's a horror book.
Ooh, I love
it's horror. Like a Lovecraftian horror book, and is such a different. It's really, really, really good. Actually, I had originally first read that, and I was like, "This is really cool." And then I was like, "I haven't read any of that old school like Grant Morrison, Alan Morrison." And then I read this and loved this, but they're very different kinds of things.
Yeah.
Also, like, New 52 Animal Man's a lot about his kids. Because his kids, like, he starts to learn that the spoilers, at the end of the first issue, Animal Man learns that he was not given his powers by aliens, but he was given his powers by, like, the celestial beings that control the red. And the celestial beings that control his regs only gave him his powers so that he can, like, when he has children, his children will be, like, the, like, messiah of the red.
Oh, so that's what... Oh! That makes sense why all of his kids have red hair, but he's a blonde. Like,
yeah, no, well, that's part of the reason is that, like, his kids, like, his daughter is, like, he finds out, like, is a god. And there are these beings, and there's this thing called the Rot, which comes out and is, like, trying to, like, destroy, like, the red and the green and all of that kind of thing. So, like, that kind of ties into New 52 Swamp Thing, which is also, like, trying to fight the Rot.
So they, like, team up or something?
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's one of the few... Overall, New 52 isn't very good, but I think Animal Man and Swamp Thing and, like, the Wonder Woman stuff is, like, really good.
Oh, my God. Wonder Woman by... I forgot who was it written by.
I think that was Brian Azzarello.
There you go. Which is weird because, like... I didn't like his Batgirl when he did for, like, The Killing Joke, but his Wonder Woman's really fucking good.
Brian Azzarello...
I read that entire run, and and funnily enough, that was actually the thing that got me reintroduced to comics when I was when I first started college, and I was just like, oh wow, I miss this. Like, it was just like, that was the thing.
So overall, we both really enjoyed it. The next run we're going to read is going to be Dennis O'Neill's seminal run on The Question from the 80s, which actually came out around the same time as this.
Oh, really?
So I think it's kind of an interesting thing, because that came out like 87, and this is like starts like 88.
Is there like a weird crossover at any point?
No, they never cross over. He crosses over with Green Arrow a couple of times in it, but that's a really thing, and probably as different as you can get, because that's also a very philosophical book, but much more gritty.
Gotcha.
So, I'm kind of curious on that, so we'll talk about that soon. Leave your comments below to tell us how you feel about this. I know this ran on long, but I am okay with that. Goodbye.
Peace out, guys.